Coming to you from deep inside the bowels of a great big empty. Get ready for another episode of The Home Defense Show with Skip Coryell.
Hello, American families. Welcome to this week's episode of The Home Defense Show. I'm your host, Skip Coryell. And if you love your family, care about them deeply, and want to learn how to protect them in every facet of your life, then boy, have you come to the right place. We got a really good show today. We are bringing in Doug Giles, the big dog from Texas. Doug's been a good friend of mine for many, many years, a decade now, I guess. But boy, Doug and we're going to be talking in segments 2 and 3 all about what does it mean to be masculine? Is it toxic? What is real classical masculinity? What's a man's job? Is his job to protect his family? Is that considered too aggressive? Is that toxic? We'll find out in segments 2 and 3. All right, what has been going on? Boy, I tell you, what's going on is the weather. The weather is just crazy as can be. Man, I tell you, it was 50 degrees yesterday, and I woke up this morning. It was 50 degrees yesterday, and it was just pouring down rain. I mean, flooding, okay? And then I wake up in the morning, and it's 9 degrees. And all of that flooded water is turned to ice. Everything is canceled, shut down. People are staying home. And boy, I tell you, tonight I've got to go to Center Shot Indoor Gun Range tonight, and going to be teaching a six-man church safety team. Going to teach them how to shoot, how to be accurate, how to be precise, to be more precise. And, boy, we're going to have a good time tonight. But then tomorrow I'll be out on an outdoor gun range, and I am not looking forward to that. I'm not dreading it, because any day on the range is a good day. But some are better than others. I have to admit that. But I'll be over at Berry County Conservation Club tomorrow. 20 students or so are going to be out there freezing our little Watusis off. But we will have a good time. And we will learn lots and do a lot of bonding. A lot of bonding happens while you're throwing lead downrange. What else is going on? I've been writing, I've been editing, these last 2 weeks, Colonel Denny Gillum was out of the country. He was in Europe with his son, doing a much well-deserved vacation. And so I had to do the last 2 weeks of Frontlines of Freedom radio all by myself. Well, not all by myself. Roland and Michael and Tom and Josh, the whole team got in on it. It took up a lot more of my time than it usually does. That's what I'm trying to tell you. But we had a good time, and the Colonel's back again next week, so I can rest a little bit. Probably for 5-10 minutes. And then I'll get right back at it again. I've been working on my next book. It's called, the working title right now, it's called Concealed Carry for Christians. And it's like a devotional. The whole purpose of writing this, it primarily is to encourage Christians who carry guns for personal defense and family defense. Encourage them, and then secondarily to teach them, to teach and exhort. So, having a good time with that. In fact, in segment 4, I'm going to be reading just one chapter, so you can get a taste of what's coming out. And that'll probably come out in April is when I'm shooting to get that out. And then after that, I'll probably work on another novel, maybe another Jack Pine Strong novel with Jack Ruger, who is just laced with masculinity. It's soothing, easing, ebbing from every pore in his body. All right, let's check out a little bit of news here in keeping with the topic today of what is a man's role in the family. classically, traditionally, historically, through just eons and eons of time, since the family existed, part of the man's role is to protect and defend, right? Well, hey, that's what this man did. I'm at kyma.com. Title is Father Uses Gun to Protect His Family in Self-Defense from Armed Robber. KMSB News. A daddy pulled his weapon and opened up on an armed robber who threatened him and his family. The incident happened at a Popeyes in San Antonio, Texas on Wednesday night. I've never been to Popeyes. I usually go to Chick-fil-A, but maybe I should check out Popeyes, I guess. Investigators said gunman Andres Herrera, age 19, walked into the restaurant and approached 32-year-old Carlos Molina, aimed a gun at him, and demanded his property. Molina said he didn't have any money because he spent it all to buy the meal and asked the robber to leave them alone, according to Fox 29 in San Antonio. Well, that was very polite of him. Please stop pointing the gun in my face and please leave me and my family alone. Herrera turned toward the counter and ordered the manager to stop running. I'm not even sure what that means. As Molina's family began to walk out of the restaurant, 2 more family members came out of the restroom, and the gunman pointed the gun at them. Molina then pulled his gun and shot Herrera several times, killing him. Molina is a licensed handgun owner, police said, and they believe he shot in defense of a third person. Well, I'm sure it's all on video, and I don't know what else you could call it. You had a bad guy coming in robbing people at gunpoint, and boy, he picked the wrong guy to rob. You know, to me, that's a father's job. That's a mom's job too. You know, even any family member, any decent human being, whether you're a mom or a dad or never had kids, you know, a man's job is to protect the innocent, to protect the weak against tyranny. And, hey, this is a form of tyranny, right? So I say, Mr. Molina, my hat's off to you. You did a great job. And don't lose any sleep over this, because you made the world a better place when you shot this Andres Herrera guy. But, you know, he's 19 years old. Whole life gone now. But he had it coming. He was asking for it. Guy even warned him. Well, yeah, that reminds me of that John Wayne quote. John Wayne said, "Life is tough, but it's a lot tougher when you're stupid." And hey, boy, it can be shorter when you're stupid too, can't it? All right. Okay, well, I think that's all we've got for news today. I'm in a hurry. I want to get right over to Doug Giles, so we're going to take an early break here. While we're away, go ahead and check out Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry book by yours truly, Skip Coryell. Go to Amazon.com and check that out. And then check out The Blind Man's Rage. And then also my latest book, Jack Pine Strong. Talk about toxic masculinity. Oh, man, that guy is masculine. Check that out. It's doing really well. All right. Also, while we're away, check out our sponsors, firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical, and see what they can do to help you if you ever have to protect your family, like this Mr. Molina had to do, just in case you get the second guest. And then also go to elitefirearms.us and see what Larry Jackson can do to help you choose the right firearm to protect your family and all the people that you love. When we come back, we will have Doug Giles from clashdaily.com, and we will learn about what he's doing and what he thinks about masculinity. All right, 2-minute break. This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
My name is CJ Coriel. Welcome to the Home Defense Show with my dad, Skip Coriel. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
This is Skip Coriel from the Home Defense Show, and I want you to have the very best handgun that money can buy. And that's why we recommend you visit Larry Jackson at Elite Firearms and Training. As a concealed carry instructor, I see people every week out on the range with guns they can't shoot properly because they didn't know what to buy. That will never happen at Elite Firearms and Training. Larry Jackson will personally fit you with your very own personal defense pistol. So call Larry Jackson today at 616-299-8715 or visit elitefirearms.us.
This is Colonel Denny Gillum. I host Frontlines of Freedom, a weekly syndicated military talk radio show. One of my co-hosts is Skip Coriel, the host of this show. We cover things that impact military and veteran communities, and we do it from the veteran's perspective. The show is broadcast across the nation and is also available as a podcast on our website, frontlinesoffreedom.com. Please join Skip and me weekly on Frontlines of Freedom.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coriel. Today we are speaking with Doug Giles, the founder of clashdaily.com. Doug, welcome to the Home Defense Show.
Skip, how you doing, big dog?
I am doing fantastic. It's just great up here. I'm up in Michigan, where it's 9 degrees out without the wind chill, and you're down in Texas. And how warm is it down there in Texas?
You know, it's actually cold this morning. It's 34 degrees, but my landscaper, as I speak, is mowing our grass. It's already turning green. So I don't know how you guys do it up there, man. You are definitely tougher than me. Spending 20 years in Florida definitely turned me into a big wuss, man. That's for sure.
Well,
when it comes to temperatures. Yeah,
in that regard, but is it that we're tougher, or maybe we just don't have enough sense to come in out of the cold? I don't know. I still remember a few years back when you came up to the Second Amendment March here in Michigan, and it was in April, I think, and there was snow blowing parallel to the ground, and you weren't quite acclimated to that. I think you were coming up from Miami or something?
Yeah, and again, that's like stepping off the surface of the sun to Pluto. But when I did that speaking engagement for the Second Amendment March, and it was snowing while I was speaking, I've got some epic photographs. I don't know which buddy of yours took them, but just great. I mean, these were huge snowflakes. It's not like these millennial type snowflakes. I mean, these were Rosie O'Donnell-sized snowflakes, and just some great pictures, great memory. Love to come back up there and stir the pot, throw the cat among the pigeons.
Yeah, well, we could use some pot stirring up here. Apparently, everything's bigger in Texas except the snowflakes, but who knew? All right, well, Doug, hey, we haven't had you on the show for a while. Last time we had you on, you were publishing a book. What have you been doing lately?
Doing a lot of artwork. I don't know, Skip, if you've seen any of my art, but it's going like crazy, man. We've done several Trump theme pieces over at douggiles.art. People can check it out, and we're selling thousands, if not tens of thousands of these prints. And I got Trump as Angus Young. He's in the schoolboy outfit with a snarling lip, and at the top it says Highway to D.C., obviously playing off their Highway to Hell album. And then below him below Trump in that one, when he's holding the guitar, snarling at the viewer, it says the 2020 tour. We had Trump as a couple of variations of Trump as a sheriff for re-election that have crushed it. We're about to release the Trump wall painting. He's in the famous James Dean pose where he's sitting on, I don't know if it's a Harley or a Triumph motorcycle, and on the gas tank it says Rebel, and there's the border fence behind him. Mm-hmm. And just having a great time with it. It's funny, some of my purist artist friends, they're like, so you're selling out, doing Trump paintings? It's like, listen, because they go to the same gallery I do. It's like, I'd rather sell out than sell nothing.
Yes.
And first of all, dear artist, I like that he's wrecking both the left and the right, and he's standing for this thing called our economy, national security. Skip, I never heard anybody in many moons take such a bold stance for the right to life of the unborn baby, at least sitting in our Oval Office. I've never heard anybody said, before, America's never going to be a socialist state with that kind of boldness, staring right in the face of vocational cortex. So, is Trump a perfect man? Absolutely not. Is he doing a hell of a job for the U.S.? I think so. And so we're celebrating it through these cheeky paintings that it's amazing how these things are selling, Skip. People are loving it. Yeah. And they can check it out at douggiles.art. I think I got like 6 or 7 of them right now that are available. Funny crap, man.
I've seen them. I'm on your mailing list. If you're not on Doug's mailing list, I think you can just go to clashdaily.com and get on the list that way, can't you, Doug?
Yep. Looking at the sign up button right here, man.
Yeah. It is. It's a good deal. I love the paintings that you do. I love that one you did of the swamp, him draining the swamp. That was just awesome. And
got his foot on Comey's head.
Yes.
Pelosi's circling the vortex. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is. People asked me the other day, Skip. They go, Why aren't you liberal? And I go, I've got 3 ugly truths. The reason why I'm not a liberal: Debbie Wasserman Schultz. That's it.
Yeah, that'll work. That works for me too. Well, Doug, you're not exactly politically correct. So, your paintings aren't going to be the way either. Neither are your books, the columns that you write, anything like that. But, I'm glad you're having fun with all this artwork, because, you just, for me, being like a firearms instructor, sales went down, students went down, classes went down, simply because people don't feel like they're under attack so much. But for you, sales went up. And, I think it's always indicative of the American dream when you can find something in any climate, whether Obama's president or whether Trump is president. Doug, you managed to find something that the American people want, and I think that's fantastic. And boy, more power to you.
Yeah, you can't do that in Iran. If I was like, hey, I want to do some paintings, praising, some populist rabble rouser, I would be beheaded, my body tossed off a 10-story building with some of the homosexuals that they're murdering and stuff. So God bless America. I asked this billionaire one time what was the greatest thing that ever happened to him, what was the greatest decision he ever made, and he said, well, the greatest thing that ever happened to me wasn't something that I created. He said, I was born in America. And it's a unique place where you can do these things. There's not a Paris dream or a France dream. There's not the Mexican dream. There's the American dream.
Well, the Mexican dream is to come to America, I think.
Yeah, and just leave the flags and leave your anti-American socialist rage behind and be meritorious here on this terra firma and swear allegiance to our founding docs and speak English.
For sure. All right, this is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. We're speaking with Doug Giles from clashdaily.com, artist and author. Now, Doug, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show today is I wanted to talk about toxic masculinity and how it affects home defense. The man's role as protector and defender. First, how would you seem to just define things and look at the world in a little different bent than everyone else on the planet. So how does Doug Giles define toxic masculinity?
I was doing this men's gathering, our first one for Warriors and Wildmen down in Yuma, Arizona, a couple of weeks ago. Had about 150 men rock up for a 3-day weekend. And I told them if masculinity is toxic, then you can call me radioactive. Skip. I believe classic masculinity can be defined by four things. Man's to be a provider, protector, hunter, and hero. And with Warriors and Wildmen, our podcast that we're doing that's at 700,000 downloads now in the last year, we put all those four things, provider, protector, hunter, and hero, under the governance of Christ, so they're not untethered or they're moored to something, humanistic or something that, again, doesn't have the governance of the Scripture over those four elements. And I don't know a person or an entity on the planet that has a problem with a man being a provider, protector, hunter, and hero, except these two entities, and that's democratic socialist and radical Islam. Because if a man is a provider, a protector, hunter, and hero, and Christ is his captain, then that cat's hard to control and manipulate and bamboozle. And that's why, again, the democratic socialists, the radical liberals, they don't like men. They're going to deem your son and your grandson and your husband and your dad's masculinity, if he's a provider, protector, hunter, and hero, is something that is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a malady. I think the American Psychological Association claimed that kind of independent spirit that testosterone produces in men, that's a pathology that person needs to be cured from. And again, that's not some, lunatic Joy Behar on The View. That's the American Psychologist Association. And the people in the schools that your son and grandson goes to, they read that garbage. And so like I tell people all the time, if your kid's going to be if your boy's going to be a man in the classic sense of the word, they're going to try to drug it out of him, shame it out of him, cajole it out of him. And I tell people all the time, yank your kids from public schools unless you know those teachers and those teachers love God and masculinity and the testosterone fog God nature conscripted your kid to grow up in.
Yeah, and that's why, boy, our kids have never gone to school. The three youngest ones, anyways. We have a 7-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 12-year-old. And I tell you, they're inside right now, and I'm at the table trying to get some work done. Right, I'm editing away, working on a book, and then all three of them come running down the stairway, screaming like a bunch of banshees, with, toy machine guns, and they're playing army inside the house, running around the table and all that stuff. And, boy, you just don't, when I was a kid, that was normal, but it seems like it's not normal anymore. Like, if someone from outside my house saw that, they might be dialing 911 and, reporting me to Child Protective Services or something. You wrote a book about, boys and masculinity, didn't you?
Yeah, raising boys feminists will hate. And, one of my points in there, as I take my cue off, Genesis 1 and the reason why God brought forth man on this planet, one of them is to slay dragons. The first man, Adam, when his wife's talking to a snake, and gentlemen, if your wife's talking to snakes, please interrupt that. Take a machete, maybe cut the snake's head off, grill it for dinner, something like that. So Adam abnegated his responsibility in protecting Eve from the slithering one in the garden. And so in my book, Raising Boys Feminists Will Hate, I take my cue from the second man, the last Adam, Christ, who after his baptism, Skip, on a very empty stomach, he goes out and he confronts Satan and defeats him in the wilderness, and then ultimately defeats him in his death, burial, and resurrection, rendering him powerless, him who had the power of death, that is the devil. And I say, I tell parents, listen, Christ is a dragon slayer. Your son is to slay dragons. And how does that deduce him down into raising them? Let him play with plastic guns. My grandson has got a great concept of good guy, bad guy, and it's cute and charming because he's 4 years old. Somebody will ask him, so what does your dad and your granddad do? And he'll stand up with his chest out and he goes, they fight bad guys. My dad's going after a bad guy today. my granddad fights bad guys, you know. And he walks around. He came to my art show at Safari Club International Austin this weekend with a sword and a shield in his hand.
There you go.
And I don't care what any moron says. You know, Skip, that's wrong. Your children shouldn't be doing that. And Doug, your grandson. It's like, listen, man, those kids, those young boys have been doing that for millennia. And I'm going to go with the historical bent of a child wanting to be a protector against bad guys. Let him play with that kind of stuff. Then your therapeutic Freudian dog crap that is turning men into these mushy, you know, little tinkerpots who curl up in the fetal position and wet their diaper when something threatens their existence.
Yeah, for sure. Doug, we're out of time for this segment. Well, we're going to be gone for 2 minutes here, but while we're away, go ahead and check out clashdaily.com. And then what was it, DougGiles.art? Is that what you said, Doug?
Yeah, DougGiles.art.
All right, check that out for sure. When you come back, we're going to talk some more about, you know, masculinity and maybe the far left and why they think it's toxic and why it's such a threat to them. All right, we're going to be gone for 2 minutes. When we come back, we'll be speaking again with Doug Giles on toxic masculinity. This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
This is Felix Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Always use guns safely and wisely. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey, folks, I want to tell you about my book, Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book. More and more people across the country are seeing the dangers in society and are deciding to carry concealed to protect themselves and their families. My new book lays it out step by step. It'll teach you how to protect and defend the ones you love. Get the benefit of 17 years of teaching experience and a lifetime of training for this important role in society and in your family. You can get Civilian Combat real easy. Just go to Amazon.com, search on Skip Coryell Civilian Combat, and it'll pop right up there. Don't put it off any longer. Get Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book by yours truly, Skip Coryell.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if life was like the movies and the good guys always won? In today's world, if you're forced to use your firearm to protect yourself, you will need protection. Firearms Legal Protection is here for you. FLP provides you with seasoned, experienced attorneys that handle your criminal and civil matters as a result of you protecting yourself. FirearmsLegal.com provides its members with uncapped attorney's fees, bail bond protection, and coverage in all 50 states. We are not a reimbursement plan. You can access uncapped attorney's fees for as low as $10 a month. Firearms Legal members are provided with educational services, training videos, and access to our vast national attorney network. While you're protecting yourself, let Firearms Legal protect you.
Listen up, folks. This is important. There are plenty of legal protection services out there, but none will protect you as well as Firearms Legal Protection. This is the one I use and the only one I recommend. Visit firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical and protect your family now.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. We are speaking with Doug Giles, author, artist, wild outdoors man. You have the podcast, Warriors and Wildmen. How do people get set up with that, Doug?
Yeah, go to warriorsandwildmen.com, and we've got several different platforms that the podcast is on. I believe we've got an app now, but warriorsandwildmen.com, just subscribe to that. We drop a new episode every Thursday. Got some great products over there, too, for who love toxic masculinity. And what's weird about Warriors and Wildmen, Skip, is that half our audience is women.
Oh, really?
No, I had this moron tell me, he goes, why are you alienating the women? Why is it just about guys? Like, first of all, why do you talk like that? Secondly, you know, women are rocking up in droves because they dig it. Matter of fact, when we had our Warriors and Wildmen weekend in Yuma, the chicks were pissed that they couldn't attend to it, so we created two events where the guys led the worship and the Warriors and Wildmen, Rich and I, spoke at two main church services. So
yeah.
I love it, man. I don't think there's any girl that's sucking oxygen on this planet that wants a little rose-cheeked dandy, to be her husband. Now she might love to go shopping with him, maybe get a frappuccino at Starbucks and drink it through that long green straw. Yeah, maybe she'll do something like that, and maybe play dolls or something. But when it comes to spitting out babies and helping her through the zombie apocalypse that's coming on the planet, she's going to want some Braveheart-like ass kicker.
Yeah. Personally, I really think that women in America, I don't know about the rest of the world, but women in America, no matter what the media says, I think women are starved for real classical men who can actually, stand up and kick somebody's ass if that's what needs to happen. What do you think?
I know it's true. Obviously I'm not a woman, even though I do like Kate Hudson movies. But when I was putting together my book, Pussification, the Effeminization of the American Male, I was like, okay, everybody's like, Doug, you're a dude. How do you know what women want? It's like, all right, fair enough. So when I had a Facebook page, I don't know if you know this or not, but I've been permanently banned from Facebook. You have 2 million followers gone. But when I had a Facebook page, I put a questionnaire out there, and I inquired of the women, it's like, would you consider dating an effeminate man? And oh my gosh, no, hell no's, you got to be kidding me. This one girl said, listen, if your husband or boyfriend takes as long as you do to get ready, then both of you need to start dating other women.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
As you know, we sewed that Q&A into the book to let the reader hear it from the ladies themselves.
Yeah.
And listen, when I'm talking about masculinity in general, I'm not this chest-thumping, knuckle-dragging type of guy. A lot of stuff I do is hyperbolic, and it's done to trigger liberals. I think men who are providers, protectors, hunters, and heroes also should showcase intelligence in every branch of wisdom. I think anti-intellectualism makes a man a cartoon of what he's supposed to be in the image of God. They're born to be wise just as much as they're born to be a dragon slayer. Secondly, this does not disparage roles in science and art and poetry and music. All those complexities are built into the classical male image. In particular, guys like King David. King David would go and cut 200 foreskins off Philistines just for a goof. He would face down a giant when he's a teenager. He would go get the Ark of the Covenant and bring it back into Zion, as a young man. And at the same time, this military leader was a poet. He's a warrior poet. And so we're not saying, poetry's bad or art's bad. I'm an artist. We're not saying that, these geeks are bad because they can't bench press their weight. That's not what we're saying at all. We're saying that there's, in the book Pussification, there's 4 basic things that dudes do: provide, protect. They hunt, not only for animals, but for opportunity and for greatness, and for their holy grail and God's call, and they're heroic.
Yeah, Doug, you nailed it. You're absolutely right. Why can't the rest of the world, it seems like the rest of the world, because that's what you see on the media, why can't they understand that or see that? How can something so 180 degrees out of phase with natural law get so strong and so powerful so that so many people are deceived by it?
It's because the liberals own most of the cameras around the planet. In regards to Hollywood, you've got, again, an agenda behind social media. Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn, they jumped into, the educational systems back in the 60s when bombs didn't work to create, the reddening of America and turn it into a socialist state. So the reason it's been expedited quickly is the public school system hates masculinity. Hollywood hates masculinity. Anything on TV that shows men always does it in a derisive sense. And social media doesn't like masculinity, but the planet does. It just seems like, that we're behind the eight ball in regards to, exhibiting the classical masculine trait of provider, protector, hunter, and hero, simply because, again, there's 24/7 disparaging coverage of men who would be men. Yeah. So I see the people who, blather that stuff to the rest of it can blow it out their backside. And I think that's why Trump is so appealing. And, Jeb Bush was appalling, is because he exhibits masculinity in his leadership.
Yeah.
Like him or hate him, man, you can't say that the guy's a wuss.
Yeah.
I watched him confront Saudi royalty about terrorism. What he said in Poland was amazing. In his State of the Union the other night, the boldness of staring down these socialists in their face, telling them America's not going down that way. You got that occasional cortex,
Yeah.
I think it's, and hopefully that'll trickle down just like Reagan's economic principles to the dudes. And the parents will say, hey, speak your mind. Stand up for what you think is right. Don't let anybody, cow you into complicity. You're not to be beholden to stale and found rejected policies of the state or principles in a apostate church. You are an independent force of nature, and that's how we're going to raise you.
Yeah. Oh, Doug, what's the future look like? Just give me your projection. What's going to happen to America in regards to masculinity and gender relationships and all that crap?
I think we're fine, man. I think the left always overplays their hand. They're fueled by demonic power. Satan always
yeah.
he always gets defeated. It always looks bleak. The power of God, the people of God, the planet always lines up with that which is holy, just, and good. So I tell people all the time, suck in your bottom lip. Yeah, things can get bleak. They've been bleak throughout our history. But those who stand, for, again, that which is holy, just, and good, those who stand for time-tested verities, the pendulum always swings back. People just completely puss out way too quick, man. They're ready for Jesus to come rapture them, and they start talking about the end of the world. And it's like, hey, it might not end. What God might be looking for right now is people who show courage and throw off cowardice and stand for Him when everybody else is folding up like a cheap lawn chair.
Yeah. I think you're right. Now, Doug, you've mentioned three men right now that you consider great. You mentioned King David. You mentioned Jesus Christ. You mentioned Donald Trump. Who are some of the other ones? Give us your top five, Doug Giles, great masculine men.
Well, I'm doing a painting right now of William Wallace from the famous movie Braveheart, and I think he's a great example because most people see him where he's just lopping off Longshanks, Droogy's heads and stuff for they're forcing the right of prima nocta on his buddy's wife and things. But if you look at Braveheart in his how he's depicted in the movie, at least. He's a reluctant warrior. Yeah. He's not just out there looking to kill people. He's like, I want a home. I want to raise kids. I want to have a family. I want to be left the hell alone. But he saw injustice in what Longshank was doing and how they were exacting, sexual tribute from the poor plebeians that were unfortunate to have his oversight. And what they did to his father and his friends and family, and slaughtering them up there in Scotland when they went to meet them under supposed good pretenses, and then how when finally they killed his new wife, he did the whole twisted sister. We're not going to take this. We're not going to be subjugated by some snaggletooth cat that lives 600 miles south of us. And he stood up as a reluctant warrior and, started kicking some ass. And I think, from at least from a cinematic standpoint, that's powerful powerful art. And I think what's funny is that Hollywood wouldn't finance it, man. And so Mel Gibson's like, I'm going to float this boat on my own. I think it cost him $394 million, and it's a multi-billion-dollar grossing film that, in the midst of the sassy secular culture that whizzes on that kind of heroism and masculinity, this thing took off like a rocket sled, man, because people, like you said earlier, Skip, they're longing for it. We're told that they're not, but women are fascinated. I know Mel Gibson's a handsome dude. They're fascinated with that story.
Yeah.
It was the first movie I ever took my kid to, Hannah and Reach to.
Oh,
there were
really?
3 and 5. There were 3 and 5, R-rated movie, one of the greatest battle movies ever, bloody as hell. And it's like, yeah, you need to watch this. I want this to be, conscripted and carved on your noggin.
Well, and your girls turned out great.
I think so.
Well,
I sure wouldn't pick a fight with them.
That's for sure. All right, Doug. So basically, to American males, American women, stay the course. Don't listen to the media. Don't listen to Nancy Pelosi, the idiots in Washington, D.C. Just hold on to good, sound doctrine, the teachings of Jesus Christ. Really, I mean, the Bible is a very masculine book. I mean, geez, talk about bravery, talk about courage, talk about violence. I mean, there's just, it's all there.
I love it when, atheists or agnostics or even, some Christians are like, the Bible's so boring. It's like you got zero imagination. God tells a 100-year-old dude who's got a 90-year-old wife that they're going to have a kid and their reproductive organs are dead, according to Romans chapter 4. You've got a teenager who's going to confront a giant with a slingshot and he wins. Mm-hmm. You've got the sun standing still for Hezekiah. You have Joshua taking a bunch of 20-somethings and 2 85-year-old farts into a land filled with giants, and God says, hey, listen, be strong and courageous. It's about to get rowdy, but I've given you this land. I think the reason why people's life sucks and why they think their Christianity sucks is they haven't done the difficult things of confronting monsters first and foremost in their own life and those out in culture.
Yeah.
So, yeah, your Christianity probably is boring because you stay in a little playpen on the sidelines of life in your little Christian Disneyland instead of confronting cultural monsters.
Yep. Doug, I agree. If people would just open up the Bible and read it and just take it at face value, I mean, my gosh, I mean, it's a giant action adventure novel. I mean, read the book of Acts. Oh, yeah.
To me, it's stunning how people are like, how they can read, and Peter and John went to jail, and Peter, and Paul got beat with rods, and Paul was shipwrecked. So, like, put yourself into that thing.
Yeah.
Imagine you in that crucible. What would you do? I guarantee most people would renounce Christ, turn into frickin' Buddhists, and would run the other direction. But these guys did not. They faced down the naysayers and the streperous, and they had one hell of a ride. I guarantee their life wasn't boring like the listener's life is boring who thinks Christianity is boring.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. Doug, we are about out of time here. But tell people where they can go to find out about all things Doug Giles.
Yeah, my main stomping grounds is clashdaily.com, and then my art site is douggiles.art, and the podcast is warriorsandwildmen.com.
Doug, this is just awesome. I'm glad we got to talk this morning because, man, you have been busy, haven't you?
Yeah, I can't imagine retiring, man. It just has zero appeal. I've got his buddy, he's like, hey, I'm retired. He's bored out of his mind.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, start another business,
That's
find
right.
something that pisses you off or makes you happy and jump into it,
Well, we're at war. Well, soldiers don't retire when there's a war going on. So, hey.
I got a buddy who's been writing for the Washington Times for 65 years.
Wow.
He's 84 years old, and he's still full of piss and vinegar, sharp as a tack, man. And there's no retire in somebody who's got that kind of, fire in them.
Absolutely. Hey, Doug, this has been great. People are going to check you out, and I wish you all the best. Thank you for being on the Home Defense Show today.
Thank you, Skip. Stay rowdy, buddy.
All right. Okay, folks, we're going to have a 2-minute break here. Go ahead and check out DougGiles.art and WarriorsandWildmen.com and clashdaily.com, all of those great things. And then go ahead and check out our sponsors, firearmslegal.com and then elitefirearms.us. When we come back in segment 4, I'll give you the wrap-up and tell you what I really think. This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Welcome to my dad's Home Defense Radio show. You're gonna love it.
Hey folks, I want to tell you about my book, Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book. More and more people across the country are seeing the dangers in society and are deciding to carry concealed to protect themselves and their families. My new book lays it out step by step. It'll teach you how to protect and defend the ones you love. Get the benefit of 17 years of teaching experience and a lifetime of training for this important role in society and in your family. You can get Civilian Combat real easy. Just go to Amazon.com, search on Skip Coryell Civilian Combat, and it'll pop right up there. Don't put it off any longer. Get Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book by yours truly, Skip Coryell.
This is Colonel Danny Gillum. I host Frontlines of Freedom, a weekly syndicated military talk radio show. One of my co-hosts is Skip Coryell, the host of this show. We cover things that impact military and veteran communities, and we do it from the veteran's perspective. The show is broadcast across the nation and is also available as a podcast on our website, frontlinesoffreedom.com. Please join Skip and me weekly on Frontlines of Freedom.
This is Skip Coryell from the Home Defense Show, and I want you to have the very best handgun that money can buy. And that's why we recommend you visit Larry Jackson at Elite Firearms and Training. As a concealed carry instructor, I see people every week out on the range with guns they can't shoot properly because they didn't know what to buy. That will never happen at Elite Firearms and Training. Larry Jackson will personally fit you with your very own personal defense pistol. So call Larry Jackson today at 616-299-8715 or visit elitefirearms.us.
You know, Skip, it's time for our Armed America Report. What do you have this week?
All of us here at Frontlines of Freedom believe strongly in your right to keep and bear arms for protection of yourself and your family. Listen, folks, evil exists. Someday evil will visit your door. Will you be ready? If not, now is the time to start looking into it and learning the skills necessary to protect the ones you love. What's the story this week, Roland?
On December 22nd, 2018, in Houston, Texas, a couple intervened to help a McDonald's employee being held at gunpoint late one night. When a robber pointed a gun at the employee in an attempt to hold up the restaurant, the couple stepped in, with one man drawing his gun and shooting the robber. After fleeing on foot, the would-be thief was later arrested at a nearby hospital.
Thanks, Roland. I think what I like most about this story is the unarmed customer who threw a chair at the armed robber. Most of us focus in on the man with a gun, and that certainly is an important aspect of this story. However, the unarmed customer who threw the chair is the one who set the stage for the final battle. Certainly, it takes a lot of courage to attack an armed man with a chair. I mean, let's face it. With a chair, you only get one shot, and if you miss, then what happens to you? Unless you knock him out with the chair, which is highly unlikely, the criminal with the gun is now focused totally on you, and you are now unarmed. It was an act of spontaneous, raw courage that defined this particular man and allowed the armed citizen to draw his gun and do the job. It's very difficult to outdraw a drawn gun, so what the armed citizen needed was a distraction, and the man who attacked with the chair provided just that. Once the chair was thrown, the criminal looked away from the armed citizen, thereby allowing him to draw and fire 2 times, hitting him in the shoulder and the chest. When you are caught off guard, which happens quite often, you are the victim of an ambush. You can't always immediately return fire. You are wise to wait for an opportunity to counterattack. And when you counter, it should be from behind cover and with everything you've got. Also, make sure you know where your rounds will go should you miss. And, oh yeah, don't miss. You've heard it said that the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is with a good guy with a gun. I think there's a lot of truth in that. However, it never hurts to have a brave man with a good sturdy chair and a fistful of warrior mindset to help you out. These 2 men worked as a team and stopped the robbery, thereby ending the threat to innocent civilians and, in the process, put one more bad guy behind bars where he belongs. A hearty Frontlines of Freedom salute to both these men who worked together to get the job done and keep America safe. Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. Doug Giles. What a guy. The guy is so funny. You know, people sometimes ask me, well, what is he like, when he's not on the air, when he's not talking to a group, and he's pretty much the same. He's a little more subdued, not quite so much rocking and rolling, but very introspective, intelligent guy, a good friend. So, hey, you ever get the opportunity to make friends with Doug Giles, you want to do that. He just makes a lot of sense. That's all I can say. Check him out at clashdaily.com and DougGilesArt.com, and then Warriors and Wildmen podcast. I think you're going to love it. All right, a few weeks ago, I remember saying on the show that I would read you guys one of the chapters, a sample chapter, an excerpt from the book that I'm working on right now. I like to do that just to get some feedback from you folks. And the working title of the book is Concealed Carry for Christians. This particular chapter is titled Courageous, and it starts out with a quote that you might recognize from Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. I like that. When I think about it, really think about it, the one movie that has affected me in the most positive way is the 2011 movie by the Kendricks brothers called Courageous. I can still remember watching it for the first time, how I cried like a baby, how it silenced me before God and my family, how it moved me to change, to improve, to work harder, and to take my responsibility as a father and a husband to a new level. Now, sure, I'd always taken parenthood seriously, knew that being a dad and husband was one of the most important things I'd ever do, but the movie, the experience, is what inspired me to actually get out there and do my job better. There is something magical about the power of a good story. To the human soul, it inspires us, imbues us with power and courage and love. And then there's that title song by the group Casting Crowns. The first line of that song is an incredible epiphany to me. We were made to be courageous. We were made to lead the way. What does that really mean? Here's how I break it down for myself. Number one, we were made. Psalms 139:14. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. The Bible is clear throughout, from the very beginning, that we are not pond scum. We were not cosmic accidents. We didn't accidentally happen when a few enzymes and chemicals mixed together of their own accord and were zapped with electricity. We didn't just happen. We were created, wonderfully made, and we were made by God, the most powerful force in the universe. Doesn't that knowledge change you, encourage you, humble you? There is no stamp on your forehead that says, Made in China. The stamp is on our souls, and it says, Made by God in His image. Genesis 1:27. So God created mankind in His own image. In the image of God, He created them. Male and female, He created them. 2. We were made to be courageous. And if we were made, not an accident, but fearfully and wonderfully made by an intelligent, benevolent being, then it stands to reason that we were also made for a purpose. After all, why would an intelligent, reasoning, loving, and logical God create other beings without purpose? We find over and over again, by looking at the world around us, that people without purpose are driven to madness and depression, even terrible acts of violence such as suicide and mass shootings. And what is that purpose? Why did God create us? Think about your reasons for becoming a parent, and it may become clear to you. You created your children so you'd have someone to love. God created His children so He could love us as well. If we can love our own children with all our flaws and shortcomings, then how much more magnificent is God's love for His children, for us, all of us? God made us to be many things, but the one thing this song reveals is this: God made us to be courageous. We were fearfully and wonderfully made in God's image. Do you really believe that God is afraid, that he's a coward, that he prowls the universe in the shadows, hides from danger, going out of his way to mind his own business, selfishly doing only what is in his own best interest? If that were true, we never would have been created. I know that I disappointed my parents from time to time. I know there were times they may have asked the question, why did I create that boy? My own children had disappointed me a few times as well, but I still love them, and I will still die for them if that's what's needed to save them. Romans 5:8, but God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Number 3, we were made to lead the way. Think about the people in the Bible that you respect, revere, and admire. Is it Judas, who betrayed Christ? Is it King Herod, filled with greed? Is it Pharaoh, hard-hearted and arrogant? The obvious answer is no. We admire Joshua for his courage. We admire Paul for his steadfast resolution. We admire Moses because, despite his fear, he obeyed God and stood up to the most powerful kingdom of his time. We were made to be courageous because God admires courage. All these people we revere and admire were leaders, people who, despite their fear, chose to obey God rather than men. They were brave men who stood up against the evil of the world to lead the way. Fear is a prerequisite to courage. Without fear, there can be no bravery. Fear is the thing we overcome. We were made by God to be overcomers, to be leaders, to be courageous. Deuteronomy 21. When you go to war against your enemies and see horses and chariots and an army greater than yours, do not be afraid of them, because the Lord your God, who brought you up out of Egypt, will be with you. In the movie Courageous, the men of God take a resolution before God and their families, promising many virtuous things. I took that pledge as well, in front of God, in front of my family, and I signed it. Now it sits on my desk, staring at me, reminding me of who God wants me to be. The very first line reads as follows: I do solemnly resolve before God to take full responsibility for myself, my wife, and my children. That is huge. Full responsibility is a lot. It's all-encompassing, leaving nothing good to chance. You have a duty to protect your family, and I'm not talking about just the men here, but also you women as well. When evil comes knocking, the parents get rocking. That's the way it has to be for the family to survive and even flourish. And that evil can take many forms. It could be the person holding a knife against your wife's throat. It could be the pedophile who is trying to hurt your children. It could be the hormone-laden, selfish teenage boy who wants to sully your daughter's good name. Another promise in the Courageous Pledge reads as follows: I will love them, protect them, serve them, and teach them the Word of God as the spiritual leader of my home. To love is also to protect. We naturally want to protect the ones we love, and that protection requires courage. It's one of our parental tools, and it's every bit as important as the gun I carry on my belt. The challenge with the gun is it will not always be with you. You are commissioned by God to protect your family whether you are armed or open-handed. Because of the myriad of laws that crisscross our nation, you may be disarmed from time to time. But the one thing you will always have is your courage, your faith in God, and your love for your spouse and children. I'm reminded of a quote from the 1991 movie Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, that inspired me as well. There was an exchange between Robin Hood, played by Kevin Costner, and Will Scarlet, played by Christian Slater, where Will asks Robin, "What would you have us do, fight armored men on horseback with rocks and bare hands?" "If needs be, but with the one true weapon that escapes you, Will, courage." Courage can always be with you. It's your birthright before God, but you must choose to accept it and exercise it. Now, I know many of you might be thinking how naive I am right now, saying, "But Skip, you don't know the life I've lived. How hard it's been for me." Well, that may not be true. My life has been a bit rocky as well, and I view myself as a chain breaker. When first starting out, I had very humble beginnings. My parents were poor, my father a factory worker. His own parents were of World War I and Depression-era vintage. My grandfather was an almost lifelong alcoholic, and I'm sure that affected my own father. We all affect our children for good or ill, but I recall the one thing that my father said to me that molded me more than any other. "Son, the best part of you went running down your mother's leg." That pronouncement of my father, forged chains around my heart that I've struggled to break for decades now. But it was a curse that only God could break, and God did break that curse. When I started life, I had grand and glorious dreams for myself. I was going to write the all-American novel, win the Pulitzer Prize, become famous and rich. That didn't happen. However, I did work hard to break the curse for my children. Here's one thing I've learned. My true legacy isn't in the books I write or the radio shows I produce. It's in the way that I live my life in front of my children for all to see. A man's true legacy is in living a life for Christ, having faith in God, and obeying His commands. I live my life to break the chains and free my children. I exist to protect my children, not just physically, but also spiritually. I model, as best I can, faith and love in God. If you've had a rough past, that doesn't rule out a beautiful future, serving God and the ones you love. But the one thing you'll need to be successful in life, and the thing you'll need to pass on to your kids, is courage. No matter what happens in life, no matter how discouraged you get, you'll need courage. Notice that the words courage and discourage are very similar but have opposite meanings. Always remember that we were not made by God to be discouraged. We were made to be courageous. The last line in that song by Casting Crowns is this: seek justice, love mercy, walk humbly with our God. To do that, you'll need courage, self-sacrifice, and above all, love for the ones you are sworn to protect. If you haven't yet heard the song Courageous by the group Casting Crowns, then please do so now. And if you haven't viewed the movie Courageous by Stephen and Alex Kendrick, then drop everything you're doing and get it done. It will change you and your children forever. Well, okay. That movie and that song, they both inspire me to be a better person, to be a better man. And I think they will you as well. So check them both out. You know, I ran long again. I didn't mean to, but I did. We've had a great time today. It's been great with Doug Giles. Go ahead, check out Doug Giles at clashdaily.com, DougGilesArt.com, and also warriorsandwildmen.com. And then go to Amazon.com, check out Civilian Combat, the concealed carry book, and also Jack Pine Strong, that new novel that will tell you what it's really like to be a real classical man. All right, be strong and courageous this week. And check out our sponsors too, firearmslegal.com/MidwestTactical and elitefirearms.us. Well, okay, folks, that about wraps it up for this week's episode of the Home Defense Show. Until next week, remember your purpose in life is to find something greater than yourself and serve it. Always remember, God, family, country, in that order. It's important how you live, but it's equally important how you die. Your family and the ones you love need your protection, so train, always train, stay alert, stay alive. Until next week on the Home Defense Show, this is your host, Skip Coryell. God bless you, God bless your family, and God bless America.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Home Defense Show. Now, get out there and protect the ones you love. We'll see you next week with more of the best in home defense.
Bye-bye, boys! Have fun storming the castle!